Hey, Tom here from the Run Testers, and this is our full review of the Hoka Bondi 8. Let's take a look. The Hoka Bondi 8 costs £145 or $165. It weighs in at 307 grams or 10.8 ounces for men in a size 8, and the drop is 4mm. The Bondi 8 has long been Hoka's go-to shoe for runners that want cushioning and comfort above all else. As well as the big wedge of midsole foam, the upper is designed to offer maximum plushness when enjoying easy miles, with plenty of padding around the ankle collar and across the tongue. In the most recent version, Hoka has modified the foam to be lighter and incorporated an extended heel geometry. The rear crash pad is built to ensure a smooth transition from heel to toe, with a soft and balanced ride that promotes efficiency. The upper is made from a lightweight mesh material that offers support without being too bulky, and is a generous covering of rubber on the outsole for grip and to protect the midsole foam. Okay, so the fit for me in the Bondi 8 has been completely true to size. It's a Hoka shoe, so it is a bit narrow. If you know anything about Hoka shoes, they're pretty much always narrow, but I would definitely have stuck true to size in this shoe.
So the fit of the Bondi 8 was perfectly good for me, true to size. I had no problems around the toe box, midfoot or heel, all perfectly good, true to size.
So I'll start with the design and the fit of this shoe. Obviously it is a kind of a big, kind of hefty shoe. Normally the kind of shoe I love running in, max cushioning, max comfort, that kind of easy run, max shoe vibe. For me, the fit is pretty standard to other Hokas. I know in previous versions of the shoe I've had to go for the wide version because I found it's ripped my feet to shreds along the sides of the shoe. I don't have particularly wide feet, but I do think they come up a little bit narrow. This is the normal version. I didn't have any issues. I had a little issue with it rubbing on the kind of little toe of my shoe. So I would say if you kind of do have a wider foot or you tend to get blisters along the sides of your feet, I would go up to the wide version. This is a UK 5. I normally run in a UK 5. I had enough room at the end of the shoe, so kind of fit wise it's similar to other Hoka Bondis, but I would say the Hokas do, in my experience, come up a little bit narrow. So if you do feel like you have a wider foot, definitely go for the wider version of the shoe.
So I've run about 50k in the Bondi 8 and nearly all of that has been easy runs, and I think it's fair to say there's not a lot I love about this shoe. The ride is pretty stable and protective, and there's a little bit of softness there, but not too much. But really the characteristic that defines it most, it feels very blocky and clunky on the foot. It's almost similar to the Nike Infinity Run series, except it hasn't got a very good rocker. Well, I didn't feel a very good rocker on this shoe. So whereas the Infinity feels smooth and stable and a bit dull, this feels blocky and heavy and a bit dull. So, it does a job of looking after the legs on recovery days and easy runs, and you can just pootle along in it fine. There's no real problem running in it, but it's just not a very enjoyable experience, I'd say, compared to a lot of other shoes out there. Towards the end of kind of longer runs, and even anything over 45 minutes really, it did start to feel a bit heavy and like you're dragging your feet along a bit in it. So I've been using it for lots of kind of easy recovery runs in marathon training weeks, and that really should be where it shines, but yeah, it just isn't a very fun shoe to pull on. It's not a shoe you look forward to grabbing and heading out there for an easy run. It does its job, but the foam really isn't very soft or springy or anything like that. Like, it feels like it's a fairly bland foam, and instead of changing the foam, Hoka has opted just to put a load more foam in the midsole, and just creates probably a very long lasting and solid shoe, but a shoe that really doesn't have a very good ride.
Okay, so run testing in the Bondi 8. I have never used a Bondi shoe before, apart from the Bondi X, which has a plate in it. But I'm a massive fan of cushion shoes, so I've heard a lot about the Bondi range over recent years, and I've always wanted to try them because I hear people waxing lyrical about them all the time as being one of the best cushion shoes out there. What I have found from my running in this shoe, and I've done about 50k in it so far, which is varied between shorter sort of 8k slow runs all the way up to longer distances, about 16k. Those have all largely been at a base pace for me, which is about 5-minute kilometers for my sort of easy day pace, but I have tried to do some faster intervals in it as well. And what I have found is I'm not a very big fan of this shoe. It's as cushion shoes go, I remember a time where Hoka was the big dog when it came to cushion shoes. The shoes were always massive in comparisons to other running shoes out there. People loved them because they offered a lot more midsole foam than the other shoes out there. Back in those days, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even longer, there weren't a lot of super foams out on the market. Most of the foams were pretty much the same in a lot of the shoes that people were wearing. And at that point, Hoka probably had a pretty big claim on the max shoe market because they were just putting loads more foam in their shoes. Nowadays, there are loads of max cushion shoes out there, and they all use different foams, and there's some fantastic shoes out on the market using those foams. But with the Bondi 8, it just feels like an old shoe that hasn't really changed a lot over the years, and I think that's probably a pretty accurate assessment of what the Bondi 8 is. I don't feel like it is comparable with a lot of other running shoes out there at the moment. You've got amazing foams from brands like New Balance with their fuel cell foam. The Fresh Foam X foam in New Balance is just a little bit more exciting than what you get in Hoka's foam. And over the runs that I've done, I've just found it to be a very sort of non-entity foam. It doesn't really feel like it's doing anything. I went for a 12k run in this yesterday, and it just feels like you've got a massive chunk of shoe on your feet that's not really adding anything to the run. But equally, I don't feel like it's really minimizing the impact of running. It just feels very flat when you're running in it, and you're not really getting anything from it. When I try a lot of other shoes at the moment, things like the Nike Invincible 2, that shoe is so soft, so bouncy. You can just feel the effects of the shoe when you're running on it, and it's enjoyable. It helps your legs feel better when you're running in it, and it just is beneficial to your running. The Bondi 8, I just don't feel like there's anything beneficial going in on this shoe at all. It just felt like I was just lifting something with my legs every time I was running and hitting the floor quite hard. There's no real sort of roller motion to it. It doesn't feel very comfortable on the feet, and it just feels really heavy and clumpy when I was running in it. And that goes for pretty much all the runs that I did in it. When I tried faster paced efforts in this, it was a no-go. You can't run faster in this shoe, which is fine. You're not meant to run faster in it, but if you did get this and think, I might try and use it for maybe a slightly faster run one day, I probably wouldn't. It's just not very comfortable for that. And those longer efforts, they just felt really hard for me. I just didn't feel like this shoe was helping me in any way. I got to about 15k in it. I don't think I'd want to go any further in this shoe just because it doesn't seem to be helping. I've got so many more shoes that are just better at comfortable, easy miles that I just probably wouldn't reach for this shoe. So ultimately, I think it is, and I've read a lot of comments from people on the channel that have said it's a fantastic shoe for walking. When you're just walking around in it, it feels fine. It's not a big problem at all. But when you're running in it, there's just no performance benefits to it. Yeah, so not a successful run test for me in the Bondi 8. I think it's time that Hoka really upped the design of this shoe and made it just a little bit more beneficial, a little bit more performance based for people that are looking to find a cushioned running shoe that can maybe do something a little bit more versatile than what this shoe does.
So the run test, I think this is definitely lighter than the Hoka Bondi. I've been a fan of the Hoka Bondi for years. I love this shoe, and I find that this one is definitely lighter than the Hoka Bondi 7. They've changed the midsole foam, they've made it lighter, but with that I think they've made it firmer. And I don't know if I think what you want from a max shoe is you want to sink into it. You want the foam, you want the plushness, you want to feel like the shoe's doing a bit of that work and taking some of the kind of impact off your legs. And I didn't get that with this. I found it, it's firmer, but I don't know if that's a good thing. Personally, I feel like it's lost some of its magic. I don't know whether that's just because we've been spoiled with other kind of brands now heading into the kind of max cushion market. Shoes like the Nike Invincible, shoes that are really plush, really soft, really designed for easy running. I don't know if the Hoka has tried to kind of tweak itself a little bit. I imagine by making the shoe lighter, they're trying to make it more responsive, but I don't know. I don't think they've done that. I think it's almost a bit kind of, for me, it lacks that kind of snap. I think before, I remember it must have been the Hoka Bondi 5 probably a few years ago. I did all of my long runs for a marathon in the Hoka Bondi. I absolutely loved it. I didn't just use it for my easy and my recovery days, I used it for my long runs. I was considering running a marathon in it. You know, if you're not running for time, it's a comfortable long distance shoe. I wouldn't use this in the same way. Definitely for recovery days, definitely for easy days, but I think it lacks that kind of plushness now that the foam's a bit harder. It's definitely more protective, it's definitely durable, you definitely feel kind of locked in this shoe, and you feel like, you know, you're protected for a recovery day. But for me, it's lost some of that Hoka magic, some of that kind of, you know, pillowiness. I think if you've got a shoe that's got this much foam, you want it to feel pillowy, and it doesn't feel pillowy underfoot. It feels a bit firmer. I preferred the Bondi 7, even though it was heavier. I think if you're going for a shoe this big, you expect it to be heavy, and I'm a stompy runner. I've never had an issue with feeling like I'm weighed down in a shoe. And I think I want to be weighed down. If I'm picking up a shoe this big, I want it to be slowing me down. I want to be wearing it on my recovery days. And I didn't feel like this kind of ticked that box. But I love the look of it. I love the design. They've added loads of recycled materials to the upper, which I love, you know, that kind of sustainability vibe. I didn't hate running in it. I just didn't love running in it as much as I loved running in other versions of the shoe.
Okay, so as you probably guessed, my verdict on the Bondi 8 is it's a very old school shoe that doesn't really deliver any performance benefits over and above what you'd expect from a shoe that came out a few years ago. When you compare it with other cushion shoes out on the market today, things like the Nike Invincible 2, the New Balance More V3, the Saucony Triumph 19 or the soon to be 20, it's just doesn't deliver what those shoes do. They all have something of benefit. The Invincible 2 is so squishy and bouncy and great for protecting your legs if they're tired. The More V3 has a lovely rolling action to it, very comfortable shoe, and just nicely keeps you going as you're running. And then the Triumph just has a nice balance of those two things. It's just very soft but also quite bouncy as well. Don't get anything from this really. I think the only person that will like this is somebody who really likes a firm shoe but wants cushioning, and there may be quite a few of you out there that do like that, but I still think there's better options out there. I think the More V3, it's not necessarily soft shoe, but it just has a little bit more to it than this shoe. So for the price, I just think there's better options out there, and I really think it's time that Hoka started to look at the foam that they use in the Bondi 8 and make some changes to it so that it can compete with some of the great shoes that are being released at the moment from other brands.
The verdict, who's it for? I feel like it's for anyone who loves that kind of max cushioned shoe. Definitely wear it on your recovery days. You could probably wear it on your easy days, but I think we have been so spoiled by, I think Hoka used to own this space. Hoka used to be the only brand, you know, if you wanted like a max cushion shoe, if you wanted to feel like you're running on a flatform. I mean, I'm 5 foot nothing and I can feel like I'm taller in this shoe. They used to be the only people on the market doing it. They're not anymore. And I think they've, you know, I don't know if the market's changed or if the shoes dramatically changed, but I think it's lacking in that magic it had. That said, Hoka fans, you know, if you loved past version of the Bondi but you found it too heavy, you'll probably love this version of the shoe because it is a lot lighter, it feels a lot lighter underfoot. But, you know, don't put it on and think, oh, it's lighter, it'll be, you know, snappy enough to wear for all of my runs. It's definitely not. You are in a slower pace in this shoe. So for that reason, I think if you're marathon training and you're looking for kind of a recovery shoe, an easy mile shoe, this is a good pick. Personally, I would buy the Bondi 7, which is bound to be cheaper because yes, it's heavier, but it's pillowier and it's softer, and this is definitely a firmer max cushion shoe.
So the Bondi does its job, but yeah, of all the cushion shoes out there, it's way down the list of ones I'd pick. There's things like the Brooks Glycerin 20, the Nike Invincible 2, the Saucony Triumph 20, the Puma Velocity Nitro. I mean, on and on and on I could go, and just listing shoes that are more enjoyable to use, at the same price or cheaper, have a livelier ride, or probably be, you know, just as durable, and they're just shoes that I would look forward to pulling on much more on my easy recovery days. When your leg's a bit tired, you want a nice shoe that's comfortable and protective, and this shoe is comfortable and protective, but a little bit of bounce, or a nice smooth rocker, or just something that makes the run feel a bit more energetic and lively. And this is just a big old block of shoe that sits on the end of your foot, and it does protect you from the impact of the ground, but just takes away a little bit from the run, I think. And even if you do want that very, you know, quite dull, stable ride, which is, you know, a good thing at times, does help protect the legs, then I do think the Nike Infinity is a better shoe, because it's pretty similar, but a bit lighter, a bit lively, a bit smoother, and just a better shoe, more enjoyable shoe to pull on. Whereas, yeah, I just got very little from the Bondi 8, in truth.
So that's it from us. Thanks a lot for watching this review. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click that little bell icon. It really does make a difference. And check the channel out for all the other videos we've got from latest road and trail shoes, as well as running watches and headphones out at the moment. And don't forget to check out our monthly podcast. You can find the link to the last podcast, or all of the podcasts, in the caption below. Click on that and you'll find the podcast provider of your choice, and you'll be able to listen to that. And a new one of those comes out at the end of every month. So thanks a lot for watching. Catch you later.